I want to look at arrays. So now, what is an array? Array is a variable that can contain more than one values. Now, there are variables that are not arrays, just contains only one value. Now let's begin. Now, before I explain extensively what is an array, I need to go into the Visual Basic environment to give a detailed explanation of an array. Now, there are single array. I'll start with single array. I'll start with one-dimensional array. Then we'll now proceed to multidimensional array, or we call multidimensional array. Now, a multidimensional array, I will touch on only a two-dimensional array. So now let's begin. Now, if I want to go into the Visual Basic, the Visual Basic environment, I will use if I want to use the keyboard to go into that environment, I will just press Auto and F11 to go into that environment. Now, another method of going into that environment is to go through the developer tab. If I click the developer tab, this is Visual Basic button. I click the Visual Basic button, I'll go into the Visual Basic environment. Now, as the cursor is on the Visual Basic, you can see that there is a shortcut key, which is Auto plus F11 to go into the Visual Basic environment, which I just explained. And again, if now, by default, this developer tab is not on your Excel window, so it's not on your main. By default, it's not on the main tab. Now, for you to bring it up to the on the main tab, you're going to, on this ribbon, you right click, you click the customize ribbon. When you right click the customize ribbon, you check this box, because if it's not here, it will be unchecked, but here is checked. That is why it is on my main tab. Now, this will be unchecked. You check it and click OK, or you go to file, you click the file, go to option, click option, now go to customize ribbon, you check this box here and click OK. So now let's go into the Visual Basic environment. We click the developer tab, the Visual Basic button. We're in the Visual Basic environment now. Now we want to explain arrays. So now, before I start, now this is a sheet. I've already renamed this sheet. Now let me call this sheet. Let me just call the sheet. Let me change it to data. Sheet data. So okay, or I can call it sheets project. Sheet project. So the name of this data sheet in our Excel sheet is data, while the name on the Visual Basic environment is sheets project. Now here, you look at it, the name here is data, the name in Visual Basic is sheet project. That is SH for sheet project. So now I need to be on this Visual Basic project, new project. When you look at the name of the Excel sheet is Visual there's new project. Now, so I need to select this new project, go to insert, or I can come here and right click and insert the module, or I go to insert here, I can insert it there. So now I've inserted this information. Now we are going to discuss on static arrays. So static arrays, you know the number of the number of arrays that is static is fixed. It cannot be changed. Just like now, let's say for instance, let me go back to Excel by clicking this Excel button. Now let's say this is components. Now let me say I want to take the value of this component. You have from, this is nitrogen sulfide, carbon dioxide, methane. So now these are components now. So now the component of these are part of the components of a natural gas. Now let's say I want to create an array that will read this value down, and there is an array that will kind of collect this data and put it into itself. So now let's say for instance, let me say sub static, let me call it static array. Now for this static array, I want to create I want to create components. I want to create component of 4. Now I will just say dim components. Now it's a fixed array. Now I will just say component of it's 4 components I want to create. So I'll just select 3, because why I'm using 3 here is that by default array starts with base 0. It starts from 0. So you have 0, 1, 2, 3. So 0, 1, 2, 3, you have 4 components there. You have 4 elements inside the component array. 4 elements. So it stores 4 elements. This 3. So now I'll say as, you know, that is a string. Now for me to now store values into this array, I will now say component first one, I'll say component 0 is equal to, now the name of this sheet, this sheet is sheet project. So now I'll just say it's equal to sheet project dot equal to sheet project dot range. Press the tab key, brackets open. Now since I want to do this, let me go back to, now is on column B, that is on this column. So now I needed to put in this component, this data into, put these values into that array. Now this is one dimensional array. this is how we will represent one-dimensional array. So now I need to put in these values into that array. So from here to here, and is B starts from B. So now, and is B from B3. So you have rows. The row is 3 B. So we have B3. So now we'll now say B3 dot value. Now we have assigned the value, this value, we have assigned this, the value of this range, to this variable, to this array, sorry, to that array. Now let me duplicate this by copying and pasting. So we have 4. So here is 1, this is 2, this is 3. Now you have 4 components inside this array. Now we are going to change this. Here should be 4, 5, and this is 6. Now let's check. Check back. Here is 6, correct. Now what we're going to do next is, having created this, let's check if actually the value inside this cell B3, where it is been assigned to the value of this. Now let's check. Let's open the local window, the local window, which is, there is a local window. Now let me break it here. Now let's press F5. Now if you look at it now, you see the component. These are the arrays. So you have string 0 to 3. Now these are the components. These are those values. You see, this is nitrogen, hydrogen sulfide, carbon dioxide, and C and methane. These are strings. Now I also need to teach how to also erase. Now also how to also write this array into a Excel sheet. So now let's say for me to write it into a Excel sheet, I'll say worksheets dot add, enter. Now that means this, what I now did, will create a new worksheet. Now let me just say worksheets dot, so this will create a new worksheet. Then now for me to copy this into the array, into the worksheet, what I will now do is, let me now copy the whole of this. And paste. Now I needed to delete this, this. Now this will now, let me let me erase this now. Let's say now for me to populate that, now if I go to a new worksheet, there is the cell that is selected should be cell A1, but I will not reference this now. Say okay, they should go into cell A1 when going into this sheet. No, I will not do that. What I will do now is I'll say active sheet. I'll look at the active sheets, not active cell, active cells dot. Now I will tend to use a loop. Let me now use a loop. Now I will use a loop to copy these values into. That is the only way it will be possible. Now let me define a variable. Let me call the variable r. Okay, let me use variable I as long. Now I will just come here, just say active cell dot active cell dot offset, comma. So now this is a single cell. The single cell, now I want it to be on, column A. So now I will now say this is I, comma 0, bracket close, dot value should not be equal to component component 0. Now, but for me to write this, I need to use for statements. For I equal to 0 to 3, equal to 0 to 3. I can also make this I too. Now, so I'm trying to loop now. I'll say next I. Now, meaning when I is equal to 0, when here is 0, when the offset is 0, 0, it will be on A1. Now, when the offset is 1, it will move 1 row down. When it is 2, you move 2 rows down from the active cell. When it is 3, it will move 3 rows down from the active cell. So it will be at number 4. So now at the 4th row, so at 0, 0 is at row at row 1. At when I is 1 is at row. So now this is the loop. So we're going to loop this to be able to copy it to the next sheet which we have created. So now let me end this, and let me also teach how to also erase the data that is stored in the array. So now I will just say erase component array. That is it. Now let's change the breakpoint here. Let's use here as the breakpoint. Now let me also use here as another breakpoint. Now I will just press F. I'll press F5. Okay, let me just step through using F8. So if I press F8, you have the components are created immediately. Now, but there is no value inside the components. Now the value of I is 0 already. So now it has not got it. We have not gotten to this point. So now let me step through. Now at component 0, let's step through. You see, you have value now. You have value which is N2, that is nitrogen. You have value which is hydrogen sulfide. You have value. Now this is the breakpoint. We are the breakpoint now. So watch here. You will see a new sheet will be created. So you see sheet 1 has been created. Now let's step through now. See, this is increasing. Now let's go back to the Excel sheet. You see, this has just been created here. So inside sheet 1, we have just created, we have copied, copied and pasted. Create a new sheet and paste it here. See that this one now is one-dimensional array I used to create this, to do this. So now let's go back. So you see, now using an offset, you see, when here is 0, when here, like here, as here is 4, as I is 4, is at this position. No, when here at this position is 3. At this position is 3, because at this position I is 0. At this position I is 2. I is 1. Here I is 2. I is 3 here. So that is done. Now let's stop this. Now by default, now we want to create 4 components, but we use 3 here because we know by default the base, it starts from 0. Now if you don't want your base to start from 0, you can use an option base to change it. So now you can just type option base 1. Now with this, we have changed it. It will now start from 1 to 3. So now, having changed this, it means that the number of components of this is just 3. It's 3. You cannot see 1. You cannot see 0, component 0 again. Now let's look at it now. That means this one has no component. It has no component. Now let's say, for instance, this value is not there. If you step through, let me use F5 to step to this breakpoint. Now you have 0, component 1, component 2, component 3. See, now it starts from 0. Now let's say we want it to start from 1. We want the base to be from 1. This just say option base 1. Now that means the thing has started from 1. Now let's assume I don't want to make changes here. I don't want to make changes. I just want to leave it like this. But ordinarily, it will not be 3 components. This one will not be there again. Now let me just assume that we made a mistake. We didn't. Let's assume that we made a mistake. We did not correct it. We haven't put this base 1. We did not make changes here. We leave it like this because ordinarily I suppose to this 3 now means it has only 3. It can store only 3 values, 3 datas. Now let's step through with F5. You see, there is an issue. They say substitution out of range. So it means that this is because of here is 0 is not correct. You see, this value is not correct. It's not supposed to be part of it. That is why it shows that that value is supposed to, see, it starts from 1, 2, 3. You know, because this option base 1 I put there, the thing has now started from 1, 2, 3. So this 0 is not part of it. So now what I will do now, I need 4 components. So what I will do, I will just change this to 4. Now start here. From here I will just say 1, 2, 3 and 4. Now let's step through. Now here will also be 1, 2, 4, so that there will be no error. Now let's step through, and again this option base 1, it is either is 0 or is 1. So it has only 2 values. Anything other than 0 and 1, it will show a syntax error. So now let's say if I put 2 here, it will not take it, you see. So it tells you that the thing is expecting only 0 or 1. So it shows a compile error. You get it? So now, meaning is either 1, is either 0 or 1. So anything other than that, it will not take it. So now let's step through. Let me now press F5. See, the thing did not show any error. It gives you these values, and it starts from 1, 2, 3 and 4. Now let me step through again. Now we have created the second sheet, because each time you step through this worksheet.add, you create new sheets. Now this is sheet 2. You see, this is it. Now the reason why we move from here to here is that at this point is offset 1, 1 from this active cell. So from the active cell we offset row 1 down, because this is 1, 0. So because here now will now be 1, here will be 1. If here is 1, here is 1. Now if I want to it to be okay, there's no need to do that. There's no need to do that. So now, so we have this stated. So now another thing here is that this, let me now create another scenario. This dimensions here inside the array can be expressed in 2 forms. Now I've written it like this: dim component 4 as string. Now it can be written in this form. Let's say now I don't want to make use of this option base 1. I can just type in here 1 to 4. I can just type 1 to 4, and I can remove this. I can remove this. I might not make use of this. Now it will still give, it will start from 1 because I stated it. So I use the lower and the upper band. So the lower band is 1, the upper band is 4. So I can, if I arrange it like this, I don't have any need for this option base 1, making it to start from 1. I don't have need for it. So having stated it like this, now let's step through. Let me use F5. You see, there is no issue, and it started from 1, 2, 3, 4. So without this option base 1, you see that? So it works perfectly. It works perfectly. Now let me say now this, let me now say for instance I want the, okay, let me just step through with F5. The third value, the third sheet is created. Let's go there. See, it moves, copies it down to this place. So now let me step down all through. So now it has erased. Now let's explain this erase function, erase statement. So now let me press F5. You see, this has been created. The number of I is 5, though it's 4, but because when the thing, after when it reaches 4, as it steps here, next it will create 5, but 5 is not there, and it will now go to this erase component, meaning number 5 is not part of this, so it will not go back because there is no 5 here. So that is why the 5 will be created, it will be there, and it will go to this erase component. So now if I step through this erase component with F8, you will see this component here will erase, will be empty. It will now be empty strings because the variable type of this array component is string. So now let me step with F8. You see, the thing has cleaned. Everything now is not there, but the I is not. The I is not that component. It's not the component I cleaned. So because I say erase component, it's not the I. So the I will still be there. The value of the I will still be there. So this is how to clean components. Now these are the different ways you can write them, write and erase. So now let's now go to looping, using loop to loop an array. Now let's say I want to loop this array. Let's say it's not like I don't want to write like 3 or 4 components. I don't want to have 4 data stored in the array. I want to have up to more than 4 data. Let's say let me close this, go back. Let me close these sheets. Let me select all of them and close them once. Let me delete them. Now let's say I want to write up to, let me say for instance up to 12 and 20, up to 20 arrays. let me say I want to write up to 20 arrays. Now what I would now do, let's go back to there. Now if I begin to write them one after the other, just like the way I did it, single by the way I was writing it, stating it, single, that is one after the other. Just let me undo, like the one I was writing this one after the other, it will be so cumbersome and it will be messy. So now for me to do it neatly and very perfectly, the best way to do that is to use loop. Now I will now say for I equal to 1 to 20. Now I will need to change it to 20. Now you have next. You have next I. Can I come here? Can I come here and just come here and just say component. Let's say component I will now be equal to, I will use range. Okay, let me just say sheets projects. I'll press Control spacebar dot range, press the tab key. Now is at B, is B3. Let me check dots. Let me check. Okay, B3 to 20. So now I will start at B2. I start at B2, so it should be B2 because the value should be at 1. So because the lower bound is starting at 1. So now since it's starting at 1, if you now, let me say I'll now offset. Let me say I use an offset. Now from this expression I've selected B3. So if I offset I, 0 down dot value, press the tab key. So now if I use I, so now the first I is 1. Here is 1, here is 1. So that means it will step down from B3. Now that means it will copy from here down to here. But while I want to copy from nitrogen to this, now let's do it so that you understand what I'm saying. Now let's work it out. So now having written this, now I'll change this to 20. Change that to 20. Now let me step down using, let me break it here and step down using F. Okay, no, let me use F8 to step down. Now, sorry, I clicked 8 instead of F8. So now let me step down with F8. Now you have the components. See, this is up to 20, so it's 20 from 1 to 20. Now let me press the F8. Now you see the value, instead of starting from here, it will start from here to copy down to this point. Now I want to copy, I want me to make sure that data that is, I want to make sure that the array contains nitrogen. But since I started with B3 and here is 1, so it will offset away from B3. It will start from B4 since the first value is 1. So now let's go. Let's look at this. You see the first one, the component 1 will now be hydrogen sulfide. So now let's say, see, hydrogen sulfide. See, so it did not start from there. So now for me to make that correction, let me stop this. For me to make the correction, I will change this to 2. Now let's step through the value. Let's use F5 to step so that we'll stop at this breakpoint. Now let's step down. So let me expand. You see, it starts from N2 down to ethyl butane. You see, so it stops here, ethyl butane. But if I use, let me close this, if I use 3 here, it will skip that. It will skip it. Let me just say F5. It will skip the nitrogen. See, it added this other one. So now it moves from here to this point. Now let's step down through with F5 again. Now sheet 5 is created, so look at it, it copies it down to this place. So now let's go back. Let me break it. So the best place to start is 2 and B2, so that you copy the whole of the whole thing. So now this is how to loop an array. So now this is how to loop an array. Now let's say, for instance, you needed to change the value here so that you can capture more other values. You can capture more other values, because now if they say, let's say they want you to, let me delete this. Let's say they want you to copy up to, let's say, up to 22. I know we did 21. Let's say they want you to copy those data into that array up to 22. Now it will now warrant us to change here and here, but and maybe there are so many other places where we used. Okay, now you now warrant us to change here and change here. If you want to change, you want to make it 22 components, 22 items inside the array. Now the best way to do that is to use The best way to use that is to use the lower bound, the L bound and the U bound, which is the lower bound and the upper bound. So now for me to do that, I will have to change here. I have to change the value here to I'll say lower bound bracket open component. The lower bound of component. The lower bound of component, let's see, sorry. The lower bound of this component. So now, and I'll just copy this. Just copy this, paste it here. I'll just change it to U bound, which is the upper bound. Now I'll copy the whole of this. That is the best way to do that. I'll paste it in. Now there's something I want to. Now we'll not paste it here, but let me undo. Let's step through using F5. Let me now step through using F5 again. Okay, let me close this. There's something I want to check. Let me step through using F5. Now here is the same value. So now let me now step down to using F8. You have this to be what? This is 1 now. Okay. Now let's close this. Now I needed to use lower bound components, bracket close, copy this, replace this, change this to upper bound. So now we have this. We can now copy the whole of this, come here and replace it with this. Now let me go back to this Excel sheet and close these sheets. Now let's go back. Now let's just use F8 to step down. Say F8. Now 20 values are created. Now when you look at here, now here is 1, here is what, 20. See, now let's step down with F5. You have all the values tabulated. So now this is it. Now let's go into, let's use F8 again. Here is what, 1, here is 20. Let's use F5 to step down completely. Then now let's use F8 to erase. If you click F8, this component will erase. It has erased. So now so this is it. So but the reason why we did this is that, let's say we want to expand the number of components that we want to store in this array. Now let's say I want to change this to 22. If I change it to 22, this function, this upper bound function will just calculate, will just calculate and give me make here 22. Just simple and short. Now let's go through them. Let's check. Let me just press F8 to step through. See, this is 22 now. This is still 1 because it's 1 here. Now let's go through. You see, you have 22 values. So now let me use F5 to step to the breakpoint. Now you see there are 2 other values that is added. You have 21 and 22, which is P xylene and O xylene is added. So let me now step through using F5 again to the breakpoint, erase the second breakpoint. Now let's look at see, is added up till this point. Now when you look at this one is just ethyl benzene. So now let me close this, let me stop it. Now you see, so with this lower and upper bound, you can be able to do that. So now we have treated how to loop, how to use the option base 1. We have also treated this is a single array. Now let's work with the kind of, let's say, let's do let me say dimensional array. Let's say, sorry, I said dynamic array, not dimensional. Sorry. Let's work with, let's do dynamic array. So now let me just copy this so that I'll make some changes. I'll paste it. Let me change this to dynamic array. So dynamic array. Let me close this. Now let's say for dynamic array, we don't know the number of components, we don't know the number of items we want to put there, so we just make this 0. We just make it blank. Now having done that, we can just now write here, we just say a dimension component, bracket open. Now let me just bracket close. Let me now let me define something. Let me just define let me define a variable. Let me say I'm using variable, let's say row. Let me say dim row as long. Let me use row. Now let me now give values for assign value to row. Let me say the value I will assign to row will now be, now here I will just say sheets. projects dot range, press tab, open brackets. Now let me close these two sheets. Now here, okay, starting from from range, starting from B, okay, should be B3, so B3 comma range, bracket open, B2 bracket close, bracket quotation sign, bracket close, dot. Now here I'll just say end to that is Excel down, bracket close, dot. Okay, this is a single row, single, so I don't need to put, it's not a double array, it's not double dimensional array, sorry, it's not double dimensional array. Now it's supposed to be like this. Dot rows, let me see, dot rows dot count. Dot count, let me see. Okay, you need to start from, sorry, you need to specify where, you need to specify here, and the end, the place you want to end it, which is down here, 24. Now I'm starting from B3. Now I'll say range to range, from B3 to range B, let's say from B to dot end, press the tab key, bracket open, XLD tab, close. So now I've stated from which cell to which cell. Now I've setted the range from B3 to B2, from B3 to B2. So now I'll say dot rows dot count. Now I can use cells to still give me the same answer. Can use cells, can use rows. Now, so what I did was I selected this point, then I selected the last point on this from here down to here. That is, I selected this and this. So this is where I just selected, and I count the number of rows here. I can also as well say count the number of cells from here to here. If I use cells, I can use cells also still have the same value. Now let's look at it. Let's just copy here, enter, just paste. Now I will just say this is row 1. Now here I will use cells. Now I will now say row 1. That's long. Now, so we have row 1, row 2. So now, okay, I'll press Shift Tab key, bring it back. So now, I will just here, so the dimension, I will just say 1 2 row. So 1 2 row. So I haven't done this. Let me now break here and now step down using F8 to see if this one and this one, whether it will give us the same value. Now let me now step down. I will just say F. Now let me open the local window. Now let's step down using F8. Now you see it's 0 0 0. Step through this row 1 will give us what? 24, correct? When you look at this from here to here, okay, from here to here is 24. Let's look at it. You have 1 to 24, so from 1. Now you see row is 24. So you see the row 1 will also be 24. Let's step through. You see row 1 is also 24. So if you use rows or cells, it will give you the same results. Now I prefer using cells so that if I want to do for across the cell, that is from left to right, what I will just change here is just this place. I will just change this place left to right. And let's say Excel to right. That's all. And this cell will remain like this. But if I use row here, that means I will change here. I will also change this one. So because because of laziness, I will prefer this, and again so that I'll be fast. So what I'll do is just to only change here, because from here to here is still called cells, from here to here is still called cells, so they are all cells. Now if I change this to 3, it will still give me the same value. Let's say I change here to 3. 3 to give me the same value. So since I have stated where I'm starting from, which is B3, to still give me the same value, let's check. Now let's step through using F5. See, the same 24, same value. Even if you change here to 4 or 5, it still give you the same value, because what this thing implies is that you select. Now I just select B3 and step and use from B3 as my reference point to get to the last point. So that expression just define the last point, which is B26. So it just say, that is the statement. I'm starting from B3 to B26. Now if I also change it to, let's say I change this to 5. Let me say I use 5 here. I use 5 here. It will be the same value. Let's check again. Just press F. See, same value. It's only when I change here it will change. If I change that place, let's say I change it to B4, the value of this will change by 1. If I change here, that is when it will change. Let's say, let me make here 4 and here 4. Let me close. Let's just step through. So now it means that I'm starting from B4 to B26. That is the meaning. Now let me just step down, step through, which is F5. See, it becomes 23. It has just reduced by 1. I hope it's clear. Now let's bring it back to what we're using before. We say 3. I can leave this one any value. I can leave it there. It doesn't make. So now let me. Now the reason why I start from B3, because I want to get the value of, that is the data of this component here, from this component down to this place. Now let's work it out. Let's see what happens. Now haven't redefined this. Where is it? Haven't redefined this here. Where did I redefine it? Okay, if I redefined it here. Now let me remove the breakpoint here. Let me remove this. Let me check too. Okay, it's okay. Let me bring, okay, let me just step down and now bring the local window to check it out. Now let's step through with F5. Step through to this breakpoint with F5. Let's look at what happens. It will show the whole value. Now this is how to do dynamic array. This is how to look out. Okay, look at it now. See, it gives me up to C10. It gives me from nitrogen to C10. So see, 1 to 24. Now let me remove this since I'm not using it. So this is how to create a dynamic array. This is how to create a dynamic array. Now let's go to two-dimensional array. Now let me insert another module. Now I will now just say sub, I'll call it multi-dimensional array. Dimensional array. So Now for multi-dimensional array, let me go back to this. Let me remove this. Okay, it's here. Click F8 so that it will erase. See, the whole of this is stated now, so let me delete it. Let me delete this. Now let's go back to this. So for multi-dimensional array, I will start with fixed array. For fixed, I'll change it to dynamic array. So now let's start with multi-dimensional array. So now for multi-dimensional array, for multi-dimensional array, what I want to do is to, now it's from here. I want to get from here down to this point. So from here up to this point. So I want to copy the whole of this information into the array. So what I'll do now is I can call it property. So I'll say dim the property of gas. Let's say gas, let me call it gas property. Gas property, two-dimensional array. Now let's start with, I want up to, let's say 10 by 10 by, now I want a component from here to 10 here. Then I'll copy the whole of this like this. So this is like a table, a two-dimensional array. So now I'm copying down from here to here, which is 10, and to this point we have 1 2 3 4. We have four rows, 4 columns and 10 rows. So now I'm starting from 1 to 10. Then there is a row. The number of rows is from 1 to 10. The rows is 1 to 10. The columns is 1 to 4. 1 to 4. Let me check again. Sorry. 1 2. Okay, 4. As variants, because when you check, this one is string, this one is double. So these ones are double, these ones are string, so it's variants. So what it does is that the Excel, what the Visual Basic does is, with this variant, if it gets to the component, if it gets to that value, it will just define it based on the type. Now if it gets to a string, it will tell you that this is a string, this the value here is a string. So now that is what will happen. Now having defined, now this is a fixed array, a fixed two-dimension. This is a two-dimensional array. You can also create more arrays here. You can just say comma, making it three-dimensional, but what we're doing here is two-dimensional, so we're not creating that. So now what we're going to do now is I'm going to now define, let's say I will now say for, let me create a loop for I equal to 1 to 10. Enter. Next. next I. Let me now I say for J equal to 1 to 4. Enter again, next J. Now, having specified this way, I need to define these variables I'm using. So the variables I'm using is I as long, press the tab key, comma, J as long, press the tab key, enter. So now we have defined this. Now what are the values of, okay, there are values here already. We have given the values of I and J. So now, having given the values of I and J, now I will now begin to define each of the components of the gas property. So now I will just say gas property, bracket open, I, comma, J, bracket close, should be equal to, now I am referring to sheets property, press Ctrl spacebar, dot range, just range. Now I'm stating where I am starting from. Range now since I want to specify here, I need to start from range A2, so that because the value of this so since if A2 is my reference point, so the first value is 1, row 1, column 1. So row 1, column 1, it will be this point. It will be it will not be N2. So that means I will start with A2 bracket close dot offset bracket open. The offset should now be I, comma, J dot value. Now this is how I can now tabulate this. That is how we can create this. Now let's look at it. Let's step through. Let me create a breakpoint here, then step with F5. Let me step down through with F5. So what I'll do, I press F5. Let's look at what we got here. Now we have up to 10 values. Now let's open the first value. Have N2. You see, it's for me starting from A2. Here is A2. Now you know the first value is the first offset is 1, 1, so it will be at this point. So the last value is N10, comma 4. So it will be this point, should be the last value, which is 0.2. Now let's look at it. Now you have this, we have just gotten this value, and this value. So now look at it. You have N2. This is the molecular weight, this is the density, and this is the mole. Now the more percent. Now when you look at this too, okay, that one is empty, is empty. Why? They are all empty. Okay, I stopped here. That is why they are empty. So stopped here. Now let me now use F8 to step through. You see, this is hydrogen sulfide, this is the molecular weight, this is the density, this is the mole, the mole percent. For the next one, the same thing. Let's walk through it again, pressing F8. See, this is carbon dioxide, this is the molecular weight, this is the density, just like that. So that is it. Now let me put a breakpoint here and step through using F5. Now let's look at the value for this. This is let me check again. So this is this is this value here, which is 0.19997, which is what is here. So you see, this is for two-dimensional array. So now for two-dimensional array, this is how it's been stated. Now let's say I want to copy this array into a worksheet. So now I will just say worksheets dot add. Now I will now say loop I. Let me just copy this. Replace it with this, paste. Now remove this. Now come here with equal sign. Now I needed to remove this. Okay, let me put it. Now I need to use, having created a new sheet, I will say I will now use an active cell. So now the active cell, so I will use an active cell dot offset, comma I, comma j dot value. So the active cell, so with this I can write into the array, then use the array to read into a cell. So now it's just like I copy data into the array, use that data in the array, and copy into a new sheet, create a new sheet, and copy that value into a new sheet. That is, copy the value and paste into a new sheet, just like what I did. I just go here with the click of button, with just a click of button, I'll copy this, create a new sheet, carry it and paste in there. That is what I just did now. That is what I will just do now. Let's step through this process. Now let's see. Let me put a breakpoint here. Let me step through using F8. But before I do this, let me just end that one and start a new one. Now press F5. So we have just created all the values in this cell. Now when you check, you have gas property 1 gas property 1 2 gas property 1 3 gas property 1 4. Now let me step with here. So for here, I've created sheet 11. I haven't stepped through this worksheet add. So now let me step through with F5. So I get to this point. Let me now check what I got. Now I've just copied the whole of those values to this sheet. Now let's go back. I've just copied it to that sheet. Now, and what I copied is just from here to here. This is so this is 10 by 4. Okay, 10 by 4 matrix. So now let me close this. Let me go to sheet 11. So now you have, this is 10 by 4 matrix 2. This is 4 10. So that is it. Now let's say I want to make changes here and I want to make changes here and here, and I don't need to, after making changes here, I'll come here to also make the same changes. So now what I will do invariably is to use the lower and the upper bound function. So here I will use the L bound function, comma, that is gas property, comma. Now this is 2-dimensional. So now in 2-dimensional, if you just use, just like in 1-dimensional, I just type in the array name and put bracket close. But this one, you have 2 dimensions. So now this dimension here is 1. This dimension position here is 1. This dimension position here is 2. So now I will use 1 here because this is for row is 1. Now I needed to copy this and paste here. Just space delete and put this upper bound, and that is it. Now that is how this is how to now make these changes. Now if I make here, the changes will just reflect here. This function will just calculate, we'll go through this and calculate what I'm saying. It will just put the value here. Now I don't need to change here and change the whole. Maybe I used this expression in many places. Now for me not to bug myself with so many issues, what I'll just do is just to create this using the L bound function and U bound function, which is what I just did here. So now for me to also create this, I'll just copy this thing. Since the array name is the same, I just paste it here. What I will just change is here is for column, which is 2. This is 2. So now this one is 1, this one is 2. So this express this function will give you the value for this upper bound. This one will give you for the lower bound. Just the same with this. Which one? This is 1, this is 1 here. So now for row is 1, for column is 2. So that is it. So now this is how to represent this. Now I will just copy paste here too. I will just paste here too and just make the changes here. Here it should be 2, here it should be 2. Now this is it. With this I will just get the same value. Let's check. There is a breakpoint. Let me just go through. Okay, can go through. Let me press F8. So you see the same value I got, just the same value. Just the same value. Now if I step through using F5 to the end, I've created another cell, which is another sheet, which is sheet 12. So let's go through sheet 12. Look at sheet 12. It's the same thing that is created. Now let's say I want to change this to, so let's say 22. Now let me step through. It will calculate itself. You see, it's 23 here. So now when you open this, you see that it's just 22. So it will calculate it on itself. You see, this is 1, this is 22. So you have to calculated this to be 20. This one will be 1, this one will be 4. So on itself, it just calculated it. Now look at it. It gives us a value for this. See? Now it gives us a value for 20, right? That's 22. That is here. Let's check. That is it. All silent. So it gives us exactly what we want. Now let me create a new sheet and copy it to that place by pressing F5 to get to the end. Now let's look at it. It just created from here to this point. Now you see, I just needed to just change only here. I don't need to touch values here. Just one change and everything is done. Now let's say I want to create a dynamic array. So now for me to create a dynamic array, I will just erase here. Now I need to erase the array. Need to erase the array. Now having erased the array here, then here I need to remove the fixed dimensions I put into the array, so it will be expressed like this. Now here I need to define, let me say I call this row count. I need to define the row count. Let me just do one here. Let me define the row count. The row count as long. I will now define the column. I call the column like this, column count. The column count as long too. Now okay, now that means the row count, how will I get the value for my row count for that value? Now I will just say I will just say sheet property, sheet is this sheet project, sorry, sheet project dot range, press the tab key, bracket open, start with this. Now let me delete the whole of this. Let me delete it. Then here I want to get the row count from here to here. I don't need the component. I don't need. Do I need? Okay, let me say I want the whole of this from. Do I need the headers? I don't think I need the headers. I don't need the headers. So what I'll do is just the components. So I want to start from here. Here is B3. So it should be B3 comma range. There is a tab key. Okay. Now I can use any value there. I can just say B. I've explained that before. B3 dot end, brackets open, Excel down dot row count, okay, dot so I want the row count, so dot count. So I didn't put cell dot cells. Okay, here the end, so I'm supposed to put bracket close. Okay, now I can just copy this and make it adjustment. So I will just say the column count will not be equal to paste. So now I will just change here Excel to right. So press the tab key, that is it. So now meaning, let me see, I'm starting here, I'm moving, I'm counting to this point, that is 4. Now so I've gotten the row counts, and the column count. So I will say redimension. I will not say redimension gas property bracket open 1 to row count comma 1 to column count bracket close. So this will redimension it, and this will give you, this is dimensional array. This is how to do dimensional array. Now let me close this local window. Let me put the breakpoint here. Okay, there are 2 breakpoints. Now let's bring the local window view, local window. So now let me step through the routine, the code through with F8. Now you have row count 24, column count 4, correct? Now you defined, you have the gas properties. You need to step through, Now let me press F8 to go through them to the process. Now this is for gas property 1. Inside gas property 1 have 4 items there properly listed. You have, for this, you have the last item, which is Dicken. Now yes, that is C10. You have all the values properly stated. Now we can now step down using F8 to the race. Now let's go to our sheet that is created, which is sheet 14. The whole of the values is being stated here. Well stated, accurately stated. So that is it. Now if I click the F8, the raise property, it will raise all the properties of the gas of the array. It will raise all the items, the data in that array, which is what it has done here. Now brings it back to variant. So that is how to do dynamic array. Now how to create a quick array. Now these are so cumbersome. Now let me insert another, let me say quick dynamic array. Let me say how to create quick dynamic array. So now we just want to sub quick quick, sorry, there's no space, there shouldn't be any space. Quick dynamic multi-dimensional array. Now I don't need to write all these long stories. Quick dimensional multi okay, let me see, put it multi-dimension array. Now I will just create, okay, let me delete this. Okay, close this. For quick dimensional array, okay, let me just define a variable as variance. Now I will just, this is a quick way to define this array. I'll just say row, I will just say sheet property chief project, sorry, range, press the tab key. Now I'm starting from where? Starting from B3, sorry, my comma, range, I would now range B3, that's B32 should be my reference point. The dot end, there's a tab key, bracket open, Excel down, bracket close, dot end, there's a tab key, Excel to right, press the tab key, bracket close, bracket close. So now with this expression I've selected here and select here as reference, from here down to this place and down to this place. So now that means I've selected the whole of this from here to here. That is what I just did. Now this one B3 is just selecting this nitrogen, this B3 cell here. Now selecting B3 as the reference, and Excel down, which is from here down here, then Excel to the right, from here to here. That means I've selected from here to here and down to this place. That is, select the whole of this. That is what I just did. I just move from here to here, from here to here. That means I've selected the whole of this. So that is it. Dot value. Dot value. Now this just a quick, this is faster, this is fast. Let's step through. Let me place a break here, step through, use F5. Now let's look at let's use our local window. Look at it. We just created 1 to 24, correct? Each of the components exactly the same. This is fast. This is a quick array, quick multi-dimensional array. You can also do the same for two-dimensional array. You can do it for one-dimensional array too. This is two-dimensional array. So this is a quick way to get your arrays properly recorded, properly assigned to these values. See, very fast and simple. Now there is another way we can, okay, that one is trying to, okay. So this is it. It's very fast and simple, precise. Now there is another form, another way we can do this, but that way you can just copy the whole of it. Okay, now let me just define another variant. This one will just copy the whole of the whole thing. This, okay, let me do it. Let's do it. Let me say dim. Let me call this Uche as the variance, as variance. Raise the tab key. Let me just say Uche is equal to sheets project dot range, brackets open, start with B3, bracket close, comma, current region. That is it. Very short and simple. Very short and simple. There's no need to put value there. Let me just leave it like this. And let's step through it and see what it gives us with F5. See, the Uche gives me more than what I want. See, this is the last one. This is the first one. You have the components. So this gives you the whole thing. This gives you the components. This gives you the header. This also gives you the second header. This gives you the components. So from here the components now begins. So that is it till up to J26. See, that is it. But this one, this method gives you precisely from where you want to start from, where you want to end. But this one gives you the entire thing, the entire current region, the entire region. No matter where your range is starting from, it gives you the entire region. So this, you see the difference between this and this. So this one gives you the whole of this. But this one is specific to what you want it to do. Starts from here and ends here. It does not give you every other thing. So for me, I prefer this method. Now this method is maybe when they ask me to copy the whole of that thing into another sheet, so I can use this method. But if I want to make some do calculations, I prefer this. Use this one. Now pick the values I want to pick and use it to do my calculation. If I want to make calculations. Now let's say I want to calculate the mass of this each component. Let's say I want to calculate the mass of each component and I want to put it here. I want to place it there. Place it here. And let's say I want to also calculate the percentage. Let's say it should be in F1, sorry, from F3 to F26, and this other one from here to here. Now that is what I want to do. Now using this quick, instead of writing so much cumbersome things, I can now say, now I want to get the mass of each of the components. So the mass of each of the components will be the molecular weight times the mole percent. So that will give me this. So what I will do now, so I don't need this to make these calculations. Don't need it, so I only need this one. This one is better for me. Now the molecular weight is, you have 1, 2, 3, 4. So the molecular weight is 2, is column 2, y the mole is column 4. So I will now define a variable. Let me call the variable dim row as long. Now I will just say for row equal to for row equal to, now let me just say 1. Let me just say 1. I will delete it. Let me define the row. The row is equal to sheets project dot range. Press the tab key. B3. Now selected that point, comma, range. b3 dot add Excel down dot cells dot count, dot count, press the tab key, and this should be bracket close, enter. So we have gotten the number of rows, from there. Okay, now I will just say for let me say I use I equal to 1 to row. Now I just gotten this. Now just need to say next I. Now I need to define I. So my I as long. Now I need to define mass. I need to define mass as will I say, let me call that answer. I call that answer. Okay, let me call that as so let me now create an array called answer. Create an array called answer. I will just, it's a dimensional array. Dimensional array as, let's say double. It's double. Now I need to redimension the answer. Need to redimension the answer. That's 1 to row, comma 1 to 2 bracket close. So I want to see answer. Bracket close. Answer equal to answer. This should be I, comma 1. Equal to array, comma array, comma I, comma 1, comma, is it 2 times array, comma I, comma 4. So I've gotten this, I've gotten the first array. can just write now let me calculate the total sum. Let's say total mass will be equal to, say, worksheet function dot sum of answer bracket open and close. Okay, I can just also put it here. Say total mass equal to total mass plus this. So now let me define this total mass. Let me define it here. Total mass is double. Now, so if this creates one of this, that value will be added here. The next one creates it, has here another. So we now invariably get this value. Now we're going to use that value up in here. Now area 2, sorry, answer I, 2 will now be answer 1. Answer I, 1. Answer I, 1. Paste. Divide by this value. Divide by the total mass. Copy, paste. Let me change this to capital. So let me close this. Have this. So now this value, I'll delete it. Now I need to write the value. Now I'll write it in sheet projects. Sheet project dot range. So the first one will be range. I'll start from F1. Sorry, F2. Now I want to copy it from here, F3, but I will use F2 to run my show, because since I'm starting from 1, to now be F2 bracket close dot offset. Now it will be I from 1, I comma 0. So it will not dot value is equal to answer I comma 1. Now we need to use it for and the next statement. Let's go through them now. I need to copy this again, paste. Now I'll start from F2. This is 1. This should be 2. So let's look at what we get here. Look at what we get here. Let's check thoroughly. Okay. Let me look at my let's look at it. We have this, and this is the percentage, which is correct. Now let me check again. I needed to multiply this by 100 so that it will be in. Let me now start again. Now I needed to erase. Let me use erase to erase the answer. Erase answer. So now let's go through it again. I put the breakpoint here. Let me step down F5. So I have, see, the value is in percentage, while this is just the mass. So here should, okay, now let me let me assign values here. This is F2 and G2. Let me say this should be now. I will just say sheet. Let me use with sheets property project. Now end with. Let me use this method. Now we'll just say dot range. I will use range F2 bracket close dot value should be equal to mass, and then the next value should be dot range brackets open G2 bracket close dot value. Press the tab key. This is mass percent. Now let's step through again using F5. Let's go back. You see the value, this is mass and mass. So now I can also use the mass. This is the percentage more. Now I can as well express it as I do the round off. Say comma 3 decimal place. Do the same here. Do the same here. We'll just round up to 2 decimal place. Into 3 decimal place. Okay, let me use 2 decimal place for the percentage. So now let's go through them again. Let's go through it again. See, this is 2 decimal place. This is 3 decimal place. So that is it. See, this is how to also use it to do calculation. So that is that. Let me now save this. Let me save it. Thank you for watching. Have a nice day. Thank you for watching till the end. Have a nice day. If you like this video, please subscribe to my channel and hit the notification bell so that anytime I create new videos, you will be the first to see it. Thank you. And also do work to help to share the videos. Thank you.